Hey everyone, Iris here. Today I want to talk about what it's like to work at a startup. I've worked at my fair share of startups here in Los Angeles, quite a few that are still in business and quite a few that have gone under. Many of my clients, mentees, and candidates have come to me and wanted to either go from a larger company and work at a startup or want to start a career at a startup. I've always kind of said the same thing, that it is a wild ride. Working at a startup, for those of you that know that it's a roller coaster ride of emotions and roller coaster ride of stability and instability. I just want to talk about a few of the pros and a few of the cons. So let's get right on into it. I define a startup company as a company that's anywhere between 10 to 50 employees and has either received Series A or Series B funding and is positioning themselves now to grow. So they're ready to now start hiring people. They have a strategy in place, an initial idea of where they want to take the company and how they want to grow, and they are ready to set themselves up for that. So either there's 10 to 50 people at this point, depending on whether it's a content company or actually consumer products, that really will dictate the size. Or if it's e-commerce, it'll be a little bit bigger, just because it requires a lot more people to operate it, even though they are still a startup. That's what I'm defining as a startup for the purposes of this video. So one of the great things about working at a startup is you're gonna learn a lot. You get hired on for your technical skills usually, but what ends up happening is that you end up doing a lot more than what you were originally hired for, which I think is really great, because at the beginning of a startup, you're really able to become a generalist and you can touch a lot of things and test a lot of things and really understand, if you're in a marketing role, you are not only doing digital marketing, but maybe you're focused on communications and brand marketing, product marketing. And so you're really able to touch a lot of pieces of the business, which will help you learn so much about either your specific field or about how to run a business. You're just gonna learn a lot. Another thing I really like is you can really create your own career path. I started as a recruiter at one of the startups that I worked with and ended up working my way up to senior recruiter and then head of talent. And then I started to be able to do learning and development and talent management, which was really fun. And anything I wanted to do, I just kind of set my mind to and created a role for it at that company. So what's really cool is you can kind of create your own career path. If you go into the right company and into the right industry that you want to be in, you can really move around within the company, either within your field or into different roles, because it's a startup and they're open to you being innovative and coming up with new ways of working. And so you can really dictate your own career path, which I think is one of the best things about working at a startup. One of the not so great parts is the heavy workload that comes along with it. Now, because you are likely in a role where you're doing the job of 300 people, you are going to have a very heavy workload and likely work very long hours. And so you'll see in startups, their job descriptions, they will say fast-paced environment or be ready to work hard with a kick-ass team. And really what that means is you're going to be doing the job of a lot of different people. Now, you can view this as a pro or a con, but I think it's a pro, especially if you're in the time in your life where you don't really have anything tying you down. I think it's a great way to come in, get a lot of work done. What else are you really doing except for, really trying to create your life around kind of what you love to do in your career? Another pro or con of working at a startup is job stability and security. So startups tend to go from having funding either through Series A or Series B to sometimes running out of cash, then getting funding again. Within those roller coasters of the business, sometimes they let go of people and sometimes they change their strategy, deeming some teams completely useless. So you are likely not going to have 100% job stability if you work at a startup. That being said, I don't believe you have job stability anywhere you work. Even if it's a larger company, things could go awry at any time, or you could lose your job at any time, whether it's a startup or a big company. So really the risk is just a little bit higher when it comes to working at a startup, but certainly job stability and security is one thing you'll want to consider. Now for me, I think of job stability and security in a very interesting way, because I do it based off tenure and how long I can be at a company. I don't want my resume to look like I've been jumping around. That's just a personal thing for me. And so when I join a startup, though I know that and job security is going to be an issue, what ends up happening is if you're very useful and you work really hard, you end up being one of the ones that lasts through the loss of funding or the layoffs. And I've worked at 2 startups before where the job was very not stable, and I ended up at one for almost 5 years and at one for almost 2 years. That's a really long time. If I were at a larger company, after having been there for 5 years, I probably would have left anyway to explore new opportunities. So for me, job stability and security, I think, is subjective because one, it really depends on what you define as stable and secure. For me, it's tenure, and being somewhere for almost 5 years doesn't really make me feel like my job was unstable. Though yes, it was very emotional during those times of like, oh my gosh, am I going to get let go? What's going to happen to the company? That's another fun part about working at a startup, is it can be very emotional. There are a lot of ups and downs, like I've said before, and a lot of times you will lose a lot of your friends in a layoff, or people get really upset when they get laid off because they are working for a company that they believe in so much that is maybe mission driven. A lot of startups work for a greater cause than just what the business is meant for. And so when you get laid off or let go, or when the company has to shut down, it can be very emotional because you were so tied to the mission and you really wanted to see it succeed, especially if you were employee number 10. I think it's a little bit more of an emotional roller coaster than it is working at a larger company where you know they're probably going to be around. If you get let go in a layoff, you'll probably end up somewhere else. It wasn't that big of a deal. But these smaller companies, you really want to see them make it and really want to see them succeed, especially since you're in a role where you probably touch a lot of the business and make such a big impact. Another downside to working at a startup is sometimes you're not making as competitive of a salary as you would if you were working at a larger company. That being said, you are usually able to get some type of equity or bonus if the company does well. However, you likely won't see that come to fruition for quite some time. So if you're really looking to make a really high salary, don't really care about equity in a company or anything like that, then working at a startup is not going to be the right place for you. But if you are willing to take the lower salary for the understanding that you are going to gain a lot of work experience and really valuable work experience, I think that you kind of have to weigh your options there, because you're likely not going to be making a lot of money. And if you're at a startup where you're making a lot of money, I would be worried about that a little bit, because they're probably going to run out of cash very quickly. Now, I want to just say, that's not to say you should undercut yourself. I think that you should always look at the overall compensation package. What do benefits look like? What are other perks? What would your work-life balance look like? And what are the equity and stock options? And do you believe in the company enough that you think they're going to eventually be very valuable to you? So those are some of the pros and cons that come with working at a startup. And I really love working at startups. I love the drive and ambition of the people and the fun. I love that you can be innovative and there's not a lot of red tape. You can just kind of move forward with what you want to do. There's a lot of autonomy, which is really awesome. So I think if you're looking to work at a startup, I would say jump in if you feel that you can take that risk. I met some of my best friends working at startups because they know the struggle. If you currently work at a startup and you can think of any other pros and cons, please comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe for more videos and content like this coming your way. Thanks so much, and see you in a bit.